The gentleman is from Al Jazeera News, and his question is, how confident is Washington in the TNC, especially in terms of putting in place the required security measures in Libya for a safer and more secure Libya? Because there have been a lot of signs that it is not, that this is not the case. Previously, the CNT said that it had control over the rebels, and then they killed Gaddafi, and then there are now weapons out of control in Libya, and now there are more and more acts of reprisals between those rebels and other people in other cities in Libya. So, how confident is Washington in the capacity of the current Libyan government to control the situation?
Well, I think that your question is as long as some of my answers have been tonight. And I apologize for that, because coming as a university professor, sometimes I get too involved in the lecture and the explanation of what we're doing. So much of my work is really focused on what's going on outside of Libya and across the region. And I think my colleagues here in Algeria and in the Al Jazeera News Network know much more than I do about what's going on inside Libya. I think that we will continue to engage the Libyan government at the highest level, and will work together with the international community for the best possible outcome. Everyone wants stability, safety, security, and self-determination for the people of Libya, for a sovereign, free Libya, for the people of Libya, because they've earned it. I think with everybody in this room that we agree that the strong outcome for the Libya people is what we wish for, as well as the government of the United States. But after this press conference, you will have my email, so I'll be very interested in what you wish to share. Questions? Reuters.
You mentioned measures that could be taken in cooperation with sovereign states in the region to improve control of stuff passing through border crossings, but as you're aware, a lot of the contraband doesn't go through border crossings, recognized border crossings. What can actually physically be done to control these vast stretches of desert border that go on for thousands of kilometers, especially when you're talking about countries which have a limited capacity, such as Mali, Niger, Chad?
Right. Well, this plays very well to the parallel approach of counterterrorism, anti-terrorism, information sharing, as well as economic development and capacity building in the country, which comes into our humanitarian work. With better infrastructure development on the roads, highways, and rail systems, you can bring the legitimate traffic under the observation and control of the governments in the region. And the benefit of the humanitarian and economic development approach is that it is an enabler for the tribes and the inhabitants of the region to have a better livelihood and a better life as those infrastructure projects are established in these more remote regions. But we cannot pave the Algerian border to Libya with 1,000 kilometers of asphalt. So this brings in sort of the counterterrorism and security cooperation between the governments in the region, which includes exchange in intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Because technology is needed to observe those very broad expanses in this border region, and this is an area that's being discussed with each of the governments. So the best approach right now is to help the sovereign Libyan government to reclaim those inventories within the borders of Libya. But in the broader context of economic development, humanitarian assistance, for instance, removing explosive remnants of war, demining operations, this cooperation has benefits for the citizens of the region, which can be used to help normalize some of the trade traffic that it can be accounted for in the governments.
The gentleman is from L'Expression newspaper, and he says, you said that all efforts should go beyond mere counterterrorism, and that we should be looking also at the approach which consists in more economic development and humanitarian approach as well, by also help building infrastructure in the countries of the region. That is what African officials said also during their several statements. Can we understand from that the African machine is already moving within Libya or not?
Based upon the government-to-government and mill-to-mill engagements in the region, I think that that's exactly what we're working is now to move from dialogue to programmatics. And I'm hopeful for a good outcome, and it will see some of those specific programs in place in the future.
He's from Le Soir Daily newspaper and he has two questions. You stated earlier that there was a convoy that was intercepted in Niger and that armament and weapons were seized in that operation. Can we get more details about that operation, where and what kind of weapons were intercepted? That's the first question. And the second one is, there's Mali, and it's a large country, and a large part of that country, and we know that is now under the control of Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, there is the rebellion in the north of Mali. Are you ready, within your mechanisms and steps for the future, to engage with the rebellion, knowing that members of that rebellion said we are doing so because we want to fight terrorism?
Well, I have just come to Algiers from Bamako, so it's a timely question. And we have just discussed some very specific programs in the more remote tribal regions, not just from the United States, but through the multinational actors and allies. As you are aware, Algeria is hosting a regional conference on counterterrorism and anti-terrorism, and Ambassador Benjamin will arrive in the country tomorrow. I would be beyond my portfolio to steal the thunder from that conference. So save your question for Ambassador Benjamin and for the members of that conference, because I can guarantee you they will be a very interesting group of people to publish on. And so I would like to sort of reiterate that the broader humanitarian domain is a big part of our interest here tonight. Oh, in Niger with the equipment? Yes, there have been some lists describing the inventories that were seized in the convoy interdictions. There were no man-pads or man-pads components in any of the last seizures. I believe the Nigerian government has released a pretty accurate and detailed inventory of what they interdicted in those actions.
Je me permets d'insister à propos du Mali. Vous avez dit que vous étiez à Bamako. Est-ce que vous considérez que ce pays montre une réelle intention de lutter contre le terrorisme, en tout cas dans le nord du Mali? Merci.
Based upon my interaction with the government officials and the programs that we discussed, I think we will have cooperation going forward with the Malian government that is both sincere and significant in the work that we do together. Some of our programs of specific cooperation in Mali are initiated in less than the next 30 days. But every border has two sides, and we don't want to lose the view of developing the security operations on all sides of every border.
Please allow me to go back to Mali, and you said that from your different interactions with the Malian officials, you felt that there is a sincere will and intention from those officials to counter terrorism. However, as you know, the official position of Mali is this government is against paying ransoms to hostage takers. And recently there have been reports on the press saying that the president of Mali, Amadou Touré himself, is leading in direct negotiations with terrorist groups in order to pay a ransom to them to free the French hostages that were taken recently. Okay, so what is your reading of that?
I think that if you have further questions about the motivations of the Malian government and what involvement they may or may not have had in hostage negotiations, that's obviously sovereign work from the Malian government. Myself, my team, my MANPADS organization here today, that's not a part of our charter, so I'm afraid I can't illuminate that further, but a fascinating question. Yeah.
Okay.
You should come to my university and speak with the class. Are we done?
And before we take the last question, I just wanted to let all of you know that our speaker, Derrin Smith, is author to the book Humanitarian in Hostile Territory. If you are interested in purchasing a copy of the book, we can take that interest back with us to the PD section, and we can help you obtain a copy.
Dernière question, donc, si on a éventuellement.
We have one last question here. That's it. Thank you.
Bonsoir, moi c'est Isabelle Crel du Midi Libre.
Okay.
Vous avez dit que vous avez
We
discuté
noted
avec
from
le
your
Mali,
statements that
l'Algérie,
you have had engagements
Libye,
with
le
Mali,
Niger.
Algeria,
Et qu'en
Libya, and
est-il
Niger.
de la
What about
Mauritanie?
Mauritania?
We've also been to Mauritania and to Morocco. So yes, we are engaged there as well, in Tunisia. Like I said, we have teams in Libya, and then coming up in the near future, our team is returning. We'll be going into Sudan and South Sudan, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and in Nigeria, because all of the countries in the region are important to the economic health of North Africa. So we intend to engage them all multinationally, multilaterally, government to government, over the long term. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Merci
Thank
à
you.
tous.